kids, Georgia here, and welcome back to OneHope Kids Online. We hope you've had a great week. This week, we're looking at a person from the Bible who was isolated inside, wait for it, a whale! Can you guess who today's story is about? That's right, it's Jonah. Today's story is about Jonah, who did the opposite of what God wanted him to do because he was scared. Have you ever felt scared about trying to be brave? Well, one day, a long time ago, God asked Jonah to go to the capital of Assyria, Nineveh. But the Assyrians were the enemies of Israel and Judah, so instead of obeying God, Jonah got on a ship going in the opposite direction. But God could see Jonah, and he brought on a fierce storm against the ship. Now, when the crew realised that the only way to save the ship and themselves was to throw Jonah overboard, they threw him over the ship, and do you know how God saved him? God sent a whale to swallow him up, and 3 days later, he spat him out onto the shore. Now, let's take a moment to imagine what it was like to be inside the fish's belly for 3 days and 3 nights. Do you think there was some fish in there with him? It might have been a bit smelly. We don't know everything that went through Jonah's mind, but we get some insight in the book of Jonah in chapter 2. It says, "Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the fish's belly. And he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and he answered me. Even though he had been disobedient and was running from God, he turned back to him in his time of trouble. He knew that God was faithful, and he didn't want to die isolated in the whale's belly. Then Jonah said, I have been cast out of your sight, God, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you in your holy temple. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord." And it says that after Jonah prayed, asking God for forgiveness, the Lord spoke to the fish and the whale vomited Jonah onto dry land. What a story. Well, what happened once Jonah was thrown up onto the shore? In Jonah chapter 3, it says, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to it the message that I tell you." Notice God didn't say, "Oh, you poor thing, Jonah, I can see you really didn't want to go to Nineveh. You can go back home instead." He told Jonah, "Now go and do what I told you." After being in the fish's belly with its digestive juices and seaweed and rotting fish, Jonah would have been quite a sight. We don't know exactly what he looked like because the Bible doesn't tell us, but we can use our imagination. And it's quite possible that much of his hair had fallen out and that his skin was blotchy and discoloured and that his clothes were rotting. Just think about what a man like that walking through our city would look like, crying out, "Turn to God, or in 40 days Geelong shall be overthrown." Today he would probably be locked up by the police who would think he was crazy. But instead, the people of Nineveh listened and repented, which means they said they were sorry that they weren't following God and that they meant it. So, I have a question for you kids. What is God asking you to do when we come out of our isolation? I'd love you to pray now and ask Holy Spirit to whisper instructions to you. A key part of praying is actually listening. Now, we may not hear a voice, you might get a feeling in your belly, or maybe he'll pop into your head the name of someone that he wants you to share the love of Jesus with when you go back to school. So let's do that now. Press pause now, pray, and ask Holy Spirit who he would like you to talk about to Jesus about when we come out of isolation. Once you've finished praying, share with the person you're watching the video with if anyone popped into your head while you were listening for God. Well done for praying. For our activity this week, we have a few different options for you. You could join furniture together and cover it in sheets to make another fort in your lounge room and pretend that you're in the whale's belly, just like Jonah. Or if you can find a giant box, you could decorate it and make it into a whale and crawl into its belly. Here's a picture to help you. Or you could make a whale out of a cup and catch Jonah into its mouth. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen again to show you what that looks like. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We love you, we miss you, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.